Hi, let me introduce our last article. How mechanical stress can affect the hyaluronan fragment. Hyaluronan is a really bizarre molecule. In relation to his dimension, his length, the effect can be completely opposite. So we have reviewed all the literature about this fragment, and we find out recently that the smaller fragments start to have a very important role in the physiology, something that was not really taken into consideration in the past. So what we have saw? We have saw that if you have a large molecule weight, so around or above 6 million Dalton, the hyaluronan have its anti-inflammatory physiological effect. But in case the hyaluronan is in a particular condition with the surrounding structure, I'm talking about water, I'm talking about human protein, his physical characteristic can change. So we know that the hyaluronan is a water-bound molecule, so it can bound up to 100 times its weight to water. So if it's well bound with water, it has like a lubricant effect. But if for some reason hyaluronan start to aggregate, this doesn't allow the water to be bound by the hyaluronan. It will start to have what we call densification, so high viscous phase of hyaluronan. That for sure will affect the shear rate between interface, so will increase the stiffness. So it was seen in this review that exothermic effect like laser therapy, infrared, all the exothermic modality that can be like a heat modality, generally speaking, they can decrease, like disaggregate the change of hyaluronan. But as well, a chemical approach like with hyaluronidase, it can loosen up the viscosity, dropping disaggregation. And this was also proven with the manual therapy, like a fascia manipulation. With the application of exothermic, mechanical and chemical modality, the hyaluronan can separate, the single change can separate, and so we can decrease the viscosity. But if we want to move on with the next step of the process, we call it the healing process, we want to wash out the exceed amount of hyaluronan to restore the normal quantity and quality. So we have to break the hyaluronan in small fragment. This seems that is possible only with the mechanical application, like fascia manipulation, the chemical application with hyaluronidase, but not as much with exothermic modality. Making small fragment of hyaluronan is the best way to allow the turnover, to replace the hyaluronan with new change of hyaluronan that have the correct length, the correct conformation. So we saw that, as we said, normal 6 million change of hyaluronan has a regular function of like a cushion of filling the empty space of lubrication. If we generate fragment like a middle fragment, like a 1 million Dalton, or even better, like a low molecular weight fragment, like a 250,000, these have a high inflammatory effect. They can cause cytokine, pro-inflammatory factor, they can call hyaluronidase that we have in our body to try to exacerbate this inflammatory process that will wash out and will stimulate the fasciocyte that we have in our body to reproduce the normal physiology. Now what is curious and what is recent, that is the smallest fragment, the oligofragment, the lower than 10 Dalton. This fragment was found to be anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. So it was nobody was aware since 2017, 2020 that this oligofragment, even if they are very small, they are not pro-inflammatory, but they are anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. So there is a really new path of research about oligofragment, and we really believe that the oligofragment, they can stop the inflammatory process that with chemical hyaluronidase or mechanical fascia manipulation can start, can catalyze the inflammation, can grow up by itself as a exponential and self-stimulating reaction. But then when it was decrease the fragment in a very small, this at the end they will stop by themselves the reaction. So with this modality, mechanical chemical, we catalyze the inflammatory process that will exacerbate by itself, but will resolve by itself. So this is very critical to explain that the inflammatory process in the next 24 hours is a normal reaction that the patient has to have after the treatment, is part of the treatment because it helps to restore the normal physiology in the area to avoid the recurrency. Thank you.